Hi, I'm Dempsey Pula, and this week I'm reviewing Now before we start off, as always, I just want to take a quick second to remind you guys to make sure you hit that like button if you like today's video, and if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well for more new movie-related content weekly. But without further ado, let's jump into today's film. Terrifier was written and directed by Damien Leone and revolves around a group of people who, over the course of one Halloween evening, become tormented by a man in a creepy clown costume. Now, I know what you're thinking. The plot sounds a little basic, and it's probably just another one of those movies that's not really scary, but just has a clown in it to make people think that it's scary. No. I thought the same exact thing when I first had heard of the film 2-3 years ago when it came out, but in the time since its release, it's generated a lot of buzz within the horror community. A lot of hardcore horror fans that I know have nothing but great things to say about it. So, with all that considered, I thought that it was finally time for me to check out what this film was about myself. So yes, this was a first-time watch for me, and it's the real deal, okay? Art the Clown. Remember that name, because I have a feeling he's going to go down in history as a horror icon. Within the last decade alone, he's easily one of the most memorable antagonists in a horror film. And it's not without good reason. I mean, the guy, the thing, whatever he is, does not give a about anything. In all of these other horror slasher films that we know and love, such as Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, our favorite villains, the monsters in those films, they all have motivations to kill. Art the Clown has no motivation whatsoever. He kills because he wants to kill. He kills because he can. And that, in and of itself, is terrifying. No pun intended. There's never any explanation. There's no exposition. And he doesn't even have a backstory. And I think that's what I really liked about it. It's just a raw horror film. There isn't even a set protagonist. Don't get me wrong, we do have main characters that we follow from time to time, and a final girl, but for the most part, Leone likes to take you wherever the action is. Very similar to what Hitchcock does in Psycho, although, by comparison, this film makes Psycho look like Barney the Purple Dinosaur, if I'm being honest. And I know what I'm about to say is going to sound pretty messed up, but no other character really matters besides Art the Clown. Without giving away too much, he will literally detach you from all of the other characters. That being said, this is easily one of the most bloodiest and goriest films I've seen in a very long time. And that's saying a lot considering we all saw this happen last year.
Gotcha, bitch!
There's actually this one scene where I found myself fighting the urge to look away, and that never happened. So that should give you a good idea at just how disturbing this film really is. There's even this very bothersome image that we're shown very early on in the film that I still can't shake. And while I'm almost certain that a lot of that stuff was purposely put in the film to shock or for shock value, it doesn't really come across that way. Instead, it ends up helping to paint a very vivid picture of just how maniacal Art really is. And I think it's very fitting that he's a clown, although I'm pretty sure there's some more that went into that, because he's full of so many tricks and you never know what he has up his sleeve. And as an audience member, it not only keeps you guessing at what he's going to do next, but it makes you all the more surprised every time he ups the ante. As menacing as he is, though, there are some moments where he's genuinely funny. For instance, there's this one kill that involves him baiting a character, and it's both horrific and hilarious. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think it takes a special kind of horror film to make you feel both fear and humor at the same time. And it goes without saying that the film's effects are also very good. Everything in this film is done practically, and save for 2 or 3 moments, scenes, shots, everything looks literally so real, it's scary. Okay, like I was very impressed at some of the stuff they were able to do and how real they were able to make it look. Blood and guts aside, though, I think the film's most realistic aspect is its characters, and I think that both the actors and the script are to thank for that. With the exception of Art, the decisions our characters make and the things they say all feel natural. For instance, early on, we meet a pizza shop owner who after seeing Art loitering on his premises, decides to throw him out and throws all his stuff out into the street. And there's even, in my opinion, my favorite character, an exterminator, who makes all the most logical decisions up until he doesn't. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because it's kind of upsetting. But he literally does everything that I would expect a reasonable person to do. He makes all the right decisions up until... Okay, well, we won't talk about that. And one of the girls who's actually running away from Art at some point in the film, she even comes to the conclusion that she can't run anymore. She actually has to start fighting because there's no other way for her to get out of the situation than to deal with it head on. And while their actions aren't always subtle, they still feel grounded in a type of realism that you don't always find in horror. All of these characters react and respond appropriately and realistically to all of the different situations that they're put in. Now, while I did enjoy this film a lot, I must admit that I do still think it has some shortcomings. For one, it is a bit repetitive at times, and I'm hesitant to use that word just because some people will hear it and say, oh, that means it's boring. This film is far from boring, okay? All of the kills are extremely entertaining, and if anything, they get better and more gruesome as time goes on. And it's not predictable either. I don't think predictable is the right word, because you will not be able to predict a lot of the stuff that happens in this film. Instead, I feel like there are just a lot of similar scenes and sequences or situations that our characters are put in. Like, Art will appear behind somebody without them knowing and then just totally gut them. Or somebody will knock Art unconscious and then his body will disappear. And we see these things happen over and over again over the course of the film, and I think they're only really noticeable because there's nothing else really happening. Like, as I mentioned before, this is just like a raw horror film, so the main story is just all these characters being picked off one by one. And I think that there are certain like relationships between characters in the film, but if there were like some additional plot lines, subplots, it wouldn't be as noticeable. And I don't think it takes away from the overall film. Like I said, I still enjoy it and I still appreciate it for what it is, but it's also undeniably formulaic. Also, while I really like the ambiguity around Art, as I mentioned before, he doesn't have a background or origin, there are several things that happen at the very end of the film that raise more questions than anything and make it seem like we were supposed to get those answers. And I don't want to talk about it, but I feel like I have to talk about it. So for those of you guys who haven't seen the film or that don't want it spoiled, I'm going to put up a minor spoiler alert right here. And if you want to cut to the ending of the review, I'll put the timestamp you can go to right there. But Art literally kills himself at the end of the film. He blows his brains out with a gun. And we see the brains fly out his head. So he's gone. We know he's gone. But then he's taken to the medical examiner. And then some lights flicker, and all of a sudden he's back. Which heavily implies that he has supernatural roots. I want to know where he comes from. I guess what I'm trying to say is that personally, I would have preferred that his fate remained a mystery. At the same time though, I understand that there's a lot more story to tell. And I'm ready for it. Especially with a sequel already in production that's set to come out next year. In case you didn't know. Despite those flaws though, Terrifier is nothing short of terrifying. And I mean, it's in the name. We all should have known, right? While it's not talked about nearly as much as it should be, it's a modern horror classic that's a cut above most of Hollywood's more mainstream gimmicks. And for that, I'm going to give this film 4 stars.
What I want you to do now is just remain calm and stay on the line with me until the police arrive.
Guys, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to view this video. It really does mean the world to me. And once again, if you like this video, please make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well for more new movie-related content weekly. Now, if you've heard of this movie, if you've actually heard of it and seen it, if you loved it, if you hated it, let me know what you thought about it down below in the comment section. I look forward to reading and responding to all of your comments. And in case you haven't noticed, this is not in theaters right now, okay? This was a part of the Halloween-centric programming that I had scheduled. Originally, I wanted to do a lot more, but because of time, I don't think I'll be able to do as much as I wanted to by the end of the month. I still have a lot of stuff planned for you, so stay tuned. This week, I have a lot, just extra content. Just be on the lookout for it. And with that, I'm afraid I'm out of time for today. So I should probably get back to work, right? Don't you think? Until next time, I'm Dempsey Pillaud. Take care.